Employers complain that they often get creative people who are very skilled and intelligent but have little knowledge about the field they're operating in. And it is often perceived that more than 87% of creatives out there are either self-taught or have no formal education in their creative field whatsoever. Are we doing something right? Or are we leaving things standing? Hi, you're welcome to Create or Die Trying with Sagai. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. We are sorry for that formal whatever. That was rather formal, wasn't it? Okay, so welcome to the show. The topic today is a bit of an interesting one for me because I had personal experience. I've had several personal experiences with that topic in terms of discussing with investors, discussing with business people, and discussing with creatives themselves. There's often the issue of who is training the creatives? How do we ensure that the creative is trained? All right? I mean, how many of the creatives out there are actually trained in their field? Now, that goes with a lot of things. And part of the issue is the fact that that problem has been developing for years. It's something I think that has been there for years and is actually quite on point, not just in Nigeria, but all over the world. There are a variety of creative people all over the world who are not trained in their field. Not everybody went to art school or illustration or design school or anything. Not saying that there aren't those schools, but not everybody can be there or afford to be there. So that means for years now we've had several people who have bypassed the entire training process and are now operating as creatives in the industry. And these creatives are often the ones that determine the standards that clients and the rest of the planet sees the creative as. So, is it something that is okay as it is, or we should find a way to ask the question and answer that question of who is training the creatives? Okay, so let's look at something. What exactly is the issue here? What are we even talking about? Now, for a variety of reasons, more than 80% of creatives I've encountered did not go through any formal creative training. They have been self-taught either by learning things on their own, trial and error ways of getting things to learn, or with the advent of the internet and e-books, tutorials. Getting on YouTube, you can learn just about everything on YouTube these days. So a lot of creatives are actually trained by themselves and with tutorials. And some are excellent at what they're doing because some of these tutorials are created by professionals, people who actually went to formal training in creative development, who are now creating tutorials to teach those who don't have to go through formal training. Now, what exactly does that create? What we are having right now is we have a lot of self-regulation. And I encountered this a lot where the creative comes to me and say, hey, my design is perfect. There's nothing to correct there because as far as he's concerned, he has followed everything the tutorial says, he has followed everything he has read and been practicing for years. So it's okay, it's perfect the way it is. And they would not take correction. Now we also have a situation where there is few certification, of course, which comes by when people are training themselves, who is certifying them, who is going to say, okay, this guy is certified to do what he says he can do. And then that also means we have no standards in the industry. Now, it's easy to argue that, look, we're in the creative field. What's the standard? I mean, creativity is subjective. You might do this way. A white line on a black background is creative in certain aspects, whereas it might not work for certain things. It's often the goal or beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So why create a standard? However, creative people operate in a standard world. We operate in a world with clients, with the consumers, with people who are going to be interacting with the creative work we produce. So those people are expecting a standard. All right. So now that also now goes into the fact that as far as standards are concerned in the creative field, there is no standard price, there is no standard quality. There's no standard delivery time, there's no standard operational efficiency for any aspect of the creative field. So we have a creative field where each man seems to be operating on their own, and they are the only one vouching for themselves, and maybe their own clients vouch for them because they have experienced them one-on-one. So we have that situation where there is no regularization anymore. I mean, there was this conversation about who do you report to if the creative that is delivering something for you fails to deliver it, or has taken the money and has not delivered the creative on time, or hasn't delivered it at all, has stopped picking your calls? How does it lose his practice, his license to practice? That's why we have a lot of stories of creative people online. Several in the last 5 years, there has been several drama played out on Facebook about creatives who collect so and so money for a project and then fail to deliver it, or there's a kind of no contract, non-agreement about something, so even clients can't even enforce it. And I even realized that a lot of creatives are particularly scared about contracts. If you bring up any document that says you most creatives run away from anything that involves signing. If it's not a script, they are not reading it. So that is already there. Now, what has caused this? Why has it happened like this? I think it's because for years we have had low interest from creative people. People want to develop their creativity in getting creative training, in getting formal creative training. So there are several schools in Nigeria that offer training in several creative aspects, for branding, for design, for illustration, for storyboarding, for communications generally, and for a variety of other things, photography and videography. So creatives don't tend to be interested in this, maybe because of years of that. You can be whatever you want to be. You can make it happen. You are the you incorporated. You are your own company. You are your own business, and you can develop yourself and be your own boss and all of that. So we have a lot of creatives who are not interested in getting formal training, because if I download at least about maybe 200 tutorials on YouTube, I'm going to be perfect at this. So why bother to go to school to get certification for it? And then we now have the situation where that particular creative goes forward and gets a job that a client who might not know better, or who just is okay with that particular level of output, calls that job excellent. So now he has, in quote, a certification that somebody says my work is excellent, and he paid good money for it. So why should anybody need to tell me that I need to be approved for my work to become a level of quality? I'm already made. I've gotten that breakthrough job. And then there is the idea that a lot of people over the years, and I've observed this, I mean, even in myself, when I was in my freelance days, I realized a lot of people often skip the learning stage of creative training and go straight into being an entrepreneur, being an enterprise, and they often go into it being a freelancer, considering freelancing a business entity. Well, it's not, all right? So all of that combined has created a culture where people don't think about certification. Now, while we might say, yeah, that has actually opened up the space for a lot of people to express their creativity. You know, you're not limited by the fact that they only teach you one thing in school or in this particular training. You now have people who are not interested in any kind of regularization at all, regulatory situation. So that has its impact on other areas, okay? And the other areas are things that would ultimately affect the creative going forward. All right? So let's come back and look at exactly how we can make this better than presently is. Let's look about things that we love right now. Creative things to love.
It is not what we have, but what we do.
Let's go. We are headed to the big leagues, Giant Army. From the ruins of great Zimbabwe.
You are at a move.
You will not have him again.
You chose this fate.
You think that's fast? Watch this.
All right, let's play.
All right, welcome back. So We've talked about exactly why it has happened over the years and exactly why we're not getting creatives trained as we ought to, because freelancing is in there and a lot of people can actually have access to training by themselves, so they don't need somebody standing for them and actually teaching them. Even though we do have a variety of certificate courses and programs happening all around us where people can actually get trained. There has been that complaint in the community. I know every time I have conversations with people at Comic Cons or at events, we haven't get into the fact of how do we ensure that the present crop of creatives don't just get on without leaving better developed young creatives to actually take things on. And that, I think, is already beginning to show in one thing. We now have a lot of people who have gone out of the freelance stages of their own enterprise and are now running studios and finding it difficult to get creative people who are as committed and as knowledgeable as they are regarding the creative field they are on. All right? So that is already trickling down to the fact that those who refuse to get formal training themselves and are now practicing are finding it difficult to get people who are as trained as they are, or who understand certain other aspects of creativity and design as they do. All right, so we have a lot of people right now who might be aware of how to use the apps, how to use the tools, but certain fundamentals are missing. I cannot tell you how many times I've had conversations with interns who come from universities even, or even interns who are basically from a different field coming in, and they have zero knowledge about the elements and principles of design and how it applies to whatever it is that they're doing in their creative field. All right, and how many are bamboozled by what the color theory is and what the color cycle is and all of that. Right? They basically just don't know these fundamentals of design and creativity, but they are quite good with the tool. I work with two designers who are excellent when it comes to the tools they are working with. Their Photoshop, their Illustrator, their CorelDRAW game is on point. But ask them to list two elements of design and they have no idea. They are self-taught. And the self-taught usually comes up into the apps they are working with, because oftentimes programs that you see now will be learn Photoshop in 10 easy steps, learn how to do this in 5 days and all of that. So that has created that problem. So let's look at this. Why is it important to figure out who's training the creatives? All right. Recently, I was in the course of trying to look for advice and talk regarding the expansion going on presently at IC Studios. I had talks with a variety of financial experts, and one of the key things that kept coming around is, okay, so you're trying to get people to invest in this business. Where is the data regarding this business? Where is the guidelines, the regulation that makes sure that if I put money into this, I'm going to be able to actually get the money out beside the contract I sign with you? Is there any other body that your people have? I mean, I can trust you, sir guy, but what about the people you're going to work with? How do we ensure that these people are up to the standards that we want them to be in, and then we can delist them in such a way if we find them wanting? Is there a way we can get that? And to actually get government recognition, to actually get a way where certain bodies of government and certain institutions can look at you and say, okay, fine, we want to actually invest in this your area of creative output, they need some form of authority on what we do. And that's either going to be a union or a certification body, an institution to actually say these people are okay to take on this job, and then we can give it to them to make it happen. So what exactly makes it important? The investors and then client trust. All right, I want to work with someone, and let's imagine this situation. You want to hire an accountant, and then you probably feel a bit differently when looking through their CV and you see chartered, ICA and ICANN in their CV as part of their titles. All right. Say you want to hire a director in America, for instance, and you find out that person is a member of the Directors Guild. It actually makes it easier for you to say, okay, fine, this director is not going to bail on me on a project because he's part of a reputable body that actually regulates how he works, right? So I think client trust will be built if we have a kind of institution that actually regulates creatives as a whole together. By the way, as always, you know, guys, this is not a lecture. I'm not giving you the all in all in the information. Your comments and contributions are important. Please put them in the comment section. Let's see how we can answer and run through them. Okay, so client trust being one, and if you have client trust, you're probably going to have investor trust as well. And then that goes into respect for the trade and the industry. Right now, I can bet you, especially for certain parts of the industry in the creative field, illustration, comic books, and all of that, most people still consider illustration an unserious area. In Nigeria particularly, I don't know how it works around the world, but I know in Nigeria that people consider comic books, for instance, and even writers in the comic book field as not serious writers because there can't be anything serious about a bunch of people who just drops in one way or the other. And it reduces respect this way too. Sometimes I try to look out for, okay, let me see the best writers I can get in the comic book industry, in the comic book field in Nigeria, or the best artists. And you find out that 5, 6, 7 studios are looking for the same set of writers and artists because they are the ones that have gained the most trust. Okay, with all this will be simply because they have been there from before or have had some form of formal training in the field. So it reduces respect for the industry when you say, oh, we have an industry, but we can count a handful of creative people who are actually operating in it. And that in itself is a problem. So what exactly do we do? How do we fix this? All right? How do we ensure that we can find a way to set who trains the creatives? All right? Now, we know for a fact that it's important that we are able to create a kind of training and regularization for creative people in our field. Why? The future. All right? Like it or not, at some point or the other, your freelance days are going to be over and you're going to have to share some of those works with some other designers or artists or creatives within the field under you. So you're going to need to be a part of those who will train those who will replace you, because replacement is happening. In fact, that's your entire goal. Is that not what you're working for? Do you want to keep drawing like this till you're 90? You want to keep doing all of this till you're 90? Obviously, you hope to build it enough to the point where you have other people to work with you so that you can actually get it better. So what exactly do we do? How do we create a way to train the creatives? We'll talk about that when we get back. Let's talk about our recommended reading, things you should be reading right now. All right, welcome back. So, guys, clear, we need some form of regulation, because if we're going to grow as an industry, yet we are going to need to get organized. So, how do we do this? Now, there have been several suggestions as to how it can work. I even like to hear your own suggestion. And even the people I talk to, those financiers, you know, the money guys we talk about all the time, they mentioned the fact that an institute of sorts that an artist or a photographer or a cinematographer or anything can add to their name, something at the end of the name that like an MON, SAN or something that kind of satisfies or says that this person has undergone certain training and is certified as a member of this particular guild or institute. Okay, so that is required. So my discussions have led to suggestions of a collaborative creation of a body that organizes certification programs in several creative fields that young creatives as well as even present creatives can actually take a course in, pass the exams of some sort, and then get a kind of certification that says, hey, we know this guy, he's gotten the basics locked down and he's reputable and he's going to be trustworthy. If you give him a job, we stand by him. All right? Now, if I believe that if that is done, we might have a situation where creative people in the various fields, particularly in the illustration and comic book field, would actually begin to get a lot more respect regarding the fact that now you have a whole body a whole institute standing behind that person saying, look, this is our guy, this is our girl, we know what they can do, and you can work with them freely with your mind at peace. All right, I think that is one of the things that came up in that. Now, so a sort of institute is what is being proposed, and I frankly, I don't even really know how that will work. I've been racking my brain about it because I know getting creatives together into a body has been a daunting task for quite a lot of people. What often happens is we have different creative bodies creating different regulatory and joint collaborative organizations to protect their own interests as a group. So it might be something that's required for the ACG industry. The ACG is coined during the 2018 with the old unicorn thing. So the ACG will be the animation, comic books and gaming industry within Nigeria. Perhaps an institute will work well, the Institute of Creative Arts. Okay, I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me hear your comments and contributions about this. What do you think we can do as creatives to regularize the training of the creatives and get a certification body for the creatives? Do you even think it's important? Is it even necessary at all? Do we even need to do this? Let me hear from you guys. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us again today. I know there's one or few things you learned in there and a lot to say. So put it in there, let's hear it. Remember, as creative people, we are supposed to create. And creativity does not exist in a vacuum, so the more you know, the better you can create. And as you do so, remember to create or that try. See you guys in the next one.